Sometimes how you come across somebody once in a while you shouldn't have messed with. That's me. Well,
I am not an African American.
You're Oreo cookie. White on the inside and black on the outside.
I don't have an afro. I have an Amerifro.
Talking that idiotic stuff you talk about, I would slap you.
Go ahead. Make my day.
Black as the ace of spades, but 100% American.
Heard around the world by everybody and their mama. The Jesse Lee Peterson Radio Show.
Uniting the races with truth instead of dividing them with lies. We're also rebuilding the family by rebuilding the man. I am Jesse Lee Peterson. Welcome to the third hour of the show, folks. I'm telling you, so much stuff to deal with. It is insanity, pure insanity happening in my great nation, in my great country today. And just one thing after another one. The more room we give to the children of Satan, the worse they get. I want to get right into the issues. Patrick Roon is here behind the headlines. We are taking your calls, folks. He is taking your calls. Patrick, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Jesse.
You know, there are so many things going on. I don't know even where to start with you. But I ask you to really look into the psycho-meds, make psycho killers. And you have the evidence that these people who are going around committing these mass murders are on some type of prescription drug or have been on them at some point in time. And in this Connecticut shooting, this recent one where this guy went in and shot up everybody at the school, killed all the kids and the teachers, you have proof that he was on prescription drugs as well.
I do have information on that. It's funny that there isn't a lot of information on it because the media is so interested in the guns, the magazines, how many rounds, how they got the gun and all that. They don't seem to care much about psychiatric medication and guns, even though the connection is pretty frightening. Now, in this particular case, there's not a lot on him because there's not a lot of questions that have been asked or information that's come out. The little that we do know is there were neighbors named Mark and Louise Trambascio. They're family friends of the shooter and his mother. They were interviewed on 60 Minutes and talked to Scott Pelley, the correspondent. And now, Louise Trambascio said, I know he was on medication and everything. You know, she didn't say a lot, but she just said that she knows that he's on medication. Now, somebody says something on 60 Minutes that someone knows a mass shooter was on medication. Don't you think somebody would want to look into that?
Right.
Well, they're not looking into that.
Right, because they don't want to ban the medication. They want to ban our Second Amendment.
Right. It's not in their interest. Now, and there's a whole list here. And again, I mentioned this. There's a great article by David Capellian, a great journalist from WorldNet Daily. I'm going to mention a few of these that caught my eye. And this is by no means, if you want to go look at David Capellian's article for more information on this. But I'm just going to give you a few highlights here. We want to know more on this particular shooter, obviously. Look at the Columbine killers. You had Eric Harris was, remember the Columbine shooting, the very famous shooting there? He was on Luvox. It's kind of like a Prozac type of medication. It's an antidepressant drug. He was found to be on that drug. They find, by the way, that during the short-term controlled clinical trials, 4% of children and youth taking Luvox, that's 1 in 25, developed mania, a dangerous and violence-prone mental derangement characterized by extreme excitement and delusion. Another example, Patrick Purdy, who we may be familiar with here in California, he went on a rampage and shot up a schoolyard in Stockton, California in 1989. That became the catalyst for the gun laws that were pushed way back when in California to ban semi-automatic weapons.
Yeah.
Now, he murdered 5 children, wounded 30. He had been on amitriptyline, an antidepressant, as well as the antipsychotic drug Thorazine at the time. Now, a few other examples here. There's someone named Kip Kindle, 15 years old, murdered his parents in 1998. The next day, he went to school, Thurston High School in Springfield, Oregon, opened fire on his classmates, killed 2, wounded 22 others. He had been prescribed for both Prozac and Ritalin. Another one, a woman named Lori Dan in 1988, 31 years old, went on a shooting rampage in a second-grade classroom in Winnetka, Illinois, killed one child, wounded 6. She had been taking antidepressant anafranil as well as lithium, long used to treat mania. Now, here's an interesting case here, and we're starting to get into a little deeper here into what's happening when these people are on these medications. 47-year-old Joseph Wesbecker, just a month after he began taking Prozac in 1989, shot 20 workers at Standard Gravure Corporation in Louisville, Kentucky.
47?
47-year-old guy.
Okay, all right.
Killed 9 and shot 20.
Okay.
Now, Prozac, the makers of Prozac, the company is called Eli Lilly, and they later settled a lawsuit brought on by the survivors. Now, a man named Kurt Danish, 18, shot his own father to death in 1996, a little more than 2 weeks after starting on Prozac. We keep hearing Prozac over and over here. Danish's description of his own mental emotional state at the time of a murder. Listen to how he described his own state of mind at the time of the murder. Quote, "I didn't realize I did it until after it was done," Danish said. "This might sound weird, but it felt like I had no control of what I was doing. I was left there just holding a gun."
Amazing.
John Hinckley, remember the name John Hinckley?
I do.
Age 25, took 4 Valium 2 hours before shooting and almost killing President Ronald Reagan in 1981. By the way, he also injured Brady, where they named the Brady Bill after Brady, who was a press secretary of Ronald Reagan. He basically turned him into, for lack of a better term, a vegetable. I mean,
he's still in a mental institute, right? Institution.
Hinckley?
The guy that did the shooting, yeah.
Yeah, I think there was a story about him recently. I think they were going to let him out or something. But anyway, here's a really interesting one, Jesse. Andrea Yates, you remember that name? She drowned all 5 of her children.
Oh, yes.
Age 7 down to 6 months in a bathtub. Now, she said that she insisted that inner voices commanded her to kill her children. She had become increasingly psychotic. At her 2006 murder retrial, after she was her original guilty verdict was overturned on appeal, Yates' longtime friend Debbie Holmes testified, "She asked me if I thought Satan could read her mind and if I believed in demon possession." And Dr. George Ringholtz, after evaluating Yates for 2 days, recounted an experience she had after the birth of her first child. What she described was a feeling of a presence, Satan, telling her to take a knife and stab her son Noah, adding that Yates' delusion at the time of the bathtub murders was not only that she had to kill her children to save them, but that Satan had entered her and she had to be executed in order to kill Satan. She had been taking the antidepressant Effexor.
Amazing.
So I think now we're getting into something a little bit, in other words, people who may be kind of psycho anyway, be taking a drug, and a drug does something to them that, and you talk about the presence of evil all the time on this show and others, may allow them, the presence of evil, to get a better foothold inside of a person.
I totally
That's
agree.
what appears, what is going on here.
You know, I'm thinking as you're speaking, if you're giving kids those type of drugs when they first start school, as little kids, you know, they are now giving kids those types of drugs.
Right.
And so if you grow up like that on drugs, and one day you don't take the drugs,
right,
what do you expect to happen?
Yeah, this is what this society is creating, letting this stuff flower out. And once it gets to its ultimate level, it's way beyond keeping a kid still in a classroom.
So instead of, quote unquote, the experts and government looking at the impact that drugs are having on these people, they want to go after our guns. They're blaming the gun. Why do you think that is?
I mean, it's pretty obvious. They want to control us. They want to be in charge. They don't want us to have any power. They're afraid of us in general, and they're afraid of us getting power. I mean, they want to keep us in a box. The less power they can have over us. So why would they give us anything? In fact, I mean, if you think of, Jesse, back to a parent with a kid or a teacher with a kid. What does a teacher want to do with a kid when he sees a kid acting up? He doesn't want to help him. He wants to control him. The kid is a nuisance. We are a nuisance to the government. The same way these kids are, they're given Ritalin to in the classroom.
Especially this government that's in operation now.
They know what we're about. They know that we're pro-Constitution. They know that we're pro-freedom. And it's totally against what Barack Obama and his cohorts want to do.
You don't have the so-called experts with degrees bringing up the fact, let's look at the drugs. Let's look at the effects that the drugs are having on these people. Because they all are connected to drugs in one form or another.
But these experts are all the same as the people that are in power. They're all the elite folks. A lot of these experts in their own family have people with drug problems.
Let me get you to respond to a couple of sound bites here, then we'll go to the phones. Andre, let's go to number one, Obama's press conference, some gun control measures that he can accomplish through executive action.
My understanding is the Vice President's going to provide a range of steps that we can take to reduce gun violence. Some of them will require legislation, some of them I can accomplish through executive action. And so I'll be reviewing those today, and as I said, I'll speak in more detail to what we're going to go ahead and propose later in the week. But I'm confident that there are some steps that we can take that don't require legislation and that are within my authority as president. And where you get a step that has the opportunity to reduce the possibility of gun violence, then I want to go ahead and take it. Well, I think, for example, how we are gathering data, for example, on guns that fall into the hands of criminals, and how we track that more effectively. There may be some steps that we can take administratively as opposed through legislation. As far as people lining up and purchasing more guns, I think that we've seen for some time now that those who oppose any common sense gun control or gun safety measures have a pretty effective way of ginning up fear on the part of gun owners that somehow the federal government's about to take all your guns away. And that there's probably an economic element to that. It obviously is good for business.
I think Obama is on drugs. As I'm listening to this. And before you go to that, I want to play one final soundbite here. Here is what Joe Biden, because Joe Biden is going to be making a recommendation to Obama today. He's met with all these people, and now he is supposed to be telling him or making suggestions to him, Obama, as to what he should do about guns. Back in 2008, Joe Biden had a different opinion about guns. Here is that soundbite.
I guarantee you, Barack Obama ain't taking my shotguns, so don't buy that malarkey. Don't buy that malarkey. They're gonna start peddling that to you. I got two. If he tries to fool with my Beretta, he's got a problem.
Amazing. You say.
It reminds me of Hillary Clinton when she ran for Senate in New York, and she was like the Jewish princess all of a sudden. Love the Jews. You got so many Jewish voters in New York, so she just went for the Jewish vote. And Papa Joe is out there just railing about. He was probably in a gun area. I don't know where, but probably in a pro-gun area somewhere. So, now the shoe's on the other foot, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter.
Executive order or action.
Well, okay. Let's go for a moment to, Obama's saying, they're talking about they think we're going to take the guns away. Governor Andrew Cuomo of New York State, okay, one of the biggest states in the country. And by the way, they're just enacting today the harshest gun laws in the first state to react to the shooting of the school children. Andrew Cuomo talked the other day about the possibility of confiscating guns from private citizens. The same guy that did this today.
They want to ban all guns.
Yeah. Now, if you want to talk about who's violent, you've got to start thinking about the most violent people the world has ever known are not the people that have the guns that are being taken away. They end up being the people who are taking the guns away.
Yes.
You think about Hitler.
Yep.
Who was it? I guess Stalin and I forgot the other guy in China. But these Mao. These are the guys who have taken guns away. Now, if they were such loving people and they were taking the guns away for good purposes, why did they end up wiping out the citizenry, the people who disagreed with them? Millions of people were killed by them. So they're the most politicians who take guns end up being the most dangerous people of all.
Gaddafi, Pol Pot.
Pol Pot.
I mean,
killing fields in Cambodia. So the list goes on and on.
Yeah, it does. You go on,
Really
and
does.
that's happening here. It's in the making, and American people are not out. I mean, there should be protests by the thousands and thousands in every city in the country.
Well, I said it last week. I'll say it again. I hope that the Tea Party gets together and does something major, especially if this guy, now they've threatened to take executive order about guns. I don't even think he has to go any further. Once he's threatened and started talking about it, that's enough. The people should be in the streets right now.
That's all it should take.
Yeah.
It's the first threat.